Good afternoon all. Today we are dealing with module 4. Module 4 deals with the data analytics for IoT and also machine learning concepts. You have already studied big data analytics and also machine learning in your previous semester and current semester. So the same concepts of data analytics and also machine learning, let us see how they are applicable for IoT and its networks. So what is big data? To understand what is big data, let us watch a video.
So we constantly produce a lot of data, for example via social media, public transport and GPS. But it goes way beyond that. Daily, we upload 55 million pictures, 340 million tweets, and 1 billion documents. In total, we produce 2.5 quintillion bytes a day. That's a lot of zeros. It's ridiculous. We call this big data. But what's actually more important is what you can do with it. To process big data, you don't need huge computers. People work with the cloud, an endless network of normal servers, and powerful algorithms. This way, they can analyze over 1 million pieces of data in minutes. And the result? Well, for example, video streaming website Netflix analyzed the big data of their viewers, like popular shows and watching patterns. This way, they produced a successful series with the perfect combination of actors, directors, and storyline. Right now, the big data of traffic is being analyzed to develop a car that can drive completely accident-free all by itself. And in the future, we can even use the big data of DNA to determine the perfect treatment. This way, curing genetic diseases like cancer would become much easier. And that's just the start.
Okay, what we saw just now is the big data, how it is generated and from what sources. As more devices are added to IoT networks, the data generated by these systems becomes overwhelming, isn't it? So, as we have seen, as we have studied in our earlier classes, that anything and everything in your life, a normal even thing, a water bottle, a purse, a bag, anything what you have, what you use in your real life can also be connected to Internet of Things network. So anything when you connect, they produce lot of data. So each thing may be having around 5 sensors on an average, let us say. So each of them will be generating a lot of data, and each thing when it is generating a lot of data, all together all the things which are connected will produce a lot of data. This data begin to consume precious network bandwidth, server resources, and increasingly taxed in their attempt to process, sort and analyze the data, isn't it? So when the huge amount of data is produced, they consume a lot of network bandwidth, server resources like memory, power, etc., and the attempt to process, sort and analyze the data is much difficult. Traditional data management systems are not prepared for the big data, isn't it? So traditional programming systems are not prepared for big data. They can only process a small amount of data. The real value of IoT is not just in connecting things, but rather in the data produced by those things. So we have to just if you connect everything in your real life, it is not sufficient. You should also learn to handle how the data produced by all these things, how you can handle in an efficient way. The new services you can enable via those connected things and business insights. So what new services you can give by connecting those things to the people, and also by the data what it is produced by the IoT networks. So what business insight you can derive from it. So here in this diagram you can see there are a lot of different sensors connected around the things in our real life, and they are producing different varieties of data. So let us say the temperature, sound, light, location, time, pressure, current, magnetism, particulates, acceleration, video, motion, wind, velocity, vibration, moisture, radio signals, voltage, etc. So these are the different varieties of data which are generated by the IoT sensors which are connected to things. The data needs to be handled in an organized and controlled way. Thus, a new approach to data analytics is needed for Internet of Things. So we cannot handle them in a traditional way, as they are huge amount of data. We need a different analytics method. Modern jet engines are fitted with thousands of sensors. So here you can see in this diagram, it is a commercial jet engine. So such kind of engines are fitted with 1000 sensors, hoping 10 GB of data per second. So the sensors which are there in this jet engine produce 10 GB, around 10 GB of data per second. Just imagine, per second they are generating 10 GB of data. So if a modern jet may be equipped with 5000 sensors, so only engine is generating 10 GB of data. So let us assume, so the whole plane, how many sensors it will have and how many data it is going to generate. So only one aircraft, if it is going to generate so much of data, so just assume there are so many thousands of aircrafts which are generating daily so much of data, gather so much of huge amount of data. The potential for petabyte of data per day just for one airplane. Across the world, there are approximately 1 lakh commercial flights per day. So per day 1 lakh commercial flights are there across the world. The amount of IoT data coming just from commercial air is overwhelming. Analyzing this amount of data in most efficient manner possible falls under the umbrella of data analytics. So data analytics should come into picture to handle such huge data and to realize full benefits of IoT. So the different types of data, structured data and unstructured data. So you have seen already in your machine learning what is a structured data and unstructured data. So let us see in the context of IoT. Structured data and unstructured data are important classifications as they typically require different tool sets from data analytics perspective. So like here you can see this is the structured data. Organized formatting it will be having. So the examples are spreadsheets and data sets, whereas unstructured data does not conform to a model, so it is not in a structured way. So examples are text, images, video and speech. So let us see what is this structured data. Model or schema that defines how data is represented or organized. So in an organized way data is stored, that is a structured data. It fits well with traditional RDBMS. So how traditionally we were processing the data, that is using RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. The structured data can be manipulated or processed with such kind of management systems. In a simpler tabular form, for example, a spreadsheet where data occupies a specific cell and can be found in most computing systems. So where it can be found, in which kind of applications the structured data is found is banking transaction and invoices, computer log files, router configurations, etc. In such applications, the structured data is available. So it is stored in an organized way, and we can process them using normal our RDBMS kind of processing tools. IoT sensor data often are structured values. So IoT sensor data are the structured values like the values of temperature, pressure, humidity, etc. They are produced in a known format. Structured data is easily formatted, stored, queried and processed. So it is easy to format, store, query and process. For these reasons, it has been the core type of data. So it is the major type of data. A wide array of data analytic tools are readily available for processing this type of data. So we have many different types of analytic tools for processing the structured data. Softwares like Microsoft Excel, Tableau, which are familiar to most people, and people are comfortable with working such tools to work with the structured data. So next is the unstructured data. In contrast, it lacks the logical schema. It will not be stored in an organized way. For understanding and decoding data through traditional programming methods is difficult. Okay, it is difficult to follow traditional programming methods to process the unstructured data. The examples of unstructured data are text, speech, images and video. It does not fit neatly into the predefined data model such as RDBMS. Around 80% of business data is unstructured. So around 20% only we can get the structured data, but the 80% of business data is unstructured. Data analytic methods that can be applied are cognitive computing and machine learning. So such kind of methods for analysis can be applied for analyzing the unstructured data. With machine learning applications such as natural language processing, you can decode speech. With image facial recognition applications, you can extract critical information with images and the video. Smart objects in IoT networks generate both structured and unstructured data. So here you should note that the sensors in IoT networks, the smart objects will generate both the structured and unstructured data. So structured data is more easily managed and processed due to its well organized stored way, and unstructured data is harder to deal with and typically requires very different analytic tools for processing the data. Different tools it requires, and the data, which is the big data generated by the smart objects of the IoT, are again can be classified into two types. One is the data in motion and data at rest. So data can be in motion or data can be at rest. So what is it? Data in IoT network is either transit, means in motion, or being held or stored at one place, which is data at rest. So let us see what is this data in motion and data at rest, where we can find them. Examples of data in motion include client-server exchanges such as web browsing, file transfer and email. So where the data will be in motion, so like streaming of data always, so even IoT networks data is in motion, because the smart objects keep generating the data. From there pre-processing happens, then it reaches the fog nodes and then it reaches the cloud nodes, hence it will be under motion where the data is under transfer. Data saved to hard drive, storage array or USB drive is data at rest, means data stored somewhere and it is not moving, it is not under movement. Such kind of data is called as the data at rest. From an IoT perspective, the data from smart objects is considered data in motion. As I said, it passes through the network and route to its final destination. This is often processed at the edge using fog computing. So, at the edge only we will pre-process the data in motion. It may be filtered and deleted or forwarded on for further processing and possible storage at the fog node or in data center. So, first it will be in the edge pre-processed, maybe like unwanted data is deleted, noise is reduced, it is converted into a particular format. Such pre-processing will be done in the edge. Edge means where the things are networked. So, there it will be pre-processed, then the data will be sent to fog node, there it will be stored, or it may be stored in the cloud. So, data at rest is where it is stored for a longer time. Data does not come to rest at the edge. So, edge data keeps generated continuously, and also the data is pre-processed and it need to be moved to the fog network or the cloud. So, it will be under motion only. So, data will not be at rest in the edge. When the data arrives at the data center, it is possible to process it in real time, just like an edge while it is still motion. So, when it reaches the data center, means the cloud. So, when it reaches the cloud, data reaches the cloud, it is possible to process them in the real time, so as it is in motion. So, tools with this sort of capability are Spark, Storm and Flink. They are the emerging tools compared to other tools. So, data at rest in IoT networks can be found in IoT brokers or in storage array at data center. So, we have studied about IoT brokers in the previous class, right? IoT brokers are the middleware where they collect the data from different sensors and they will convert it into a standardized format and then forward it to the application. So, those are the IoT brokers, and we also studied that the IoT broker may sell the data to a third party. So, in such cases where the data is stored in a particular place with IoT broker or in a data center, such data is called as data at rest. The best known of these tools is Hadoop. So, Hadoop is the most popular one to process the data under rest. Hadoop not only helps with data processing but also helps with data storage in an organized and efficient way. Data can also be stored in Hadoop and also processing. Storage and processing both are supported by the Hadoop tool. We will be studying about Hadoop tool in the upcoming discussions. IoT data analytics overview. So, now data is collected, data is processed, data is stored. So, now how analysis is done, how the IoT data is analyzed. Data analytics of IoT, let us see. Analysis of IoT data from smart objects should lead to actionable business intelligence and insights. So, we have seen earlier also, when you collect a huge amount of data from smart objects which are connected to IoT networks, it is not only sufficient to collect it. Why we need to collect a huge amount of data? Because we want to derive some business insight from that data. We want to do some business out of that data. Hence, the data need to be collected. But just collecting is not sufficient. You need to analyze the data and you need to find out what business we can do with that data. There are 4 types of data analysis results. They are descriptive, diagnostic, predictive and prescriptive. So, let us see what these data analysis results types are. So, after analyzing the data collected from IoT networks, see like here we can see the data which is generated from different IoT network smart objects. So, here it may be a raw and processed network data, mobile internet, machine and sensors, usage, video, social media, events, alarms, geolocation, ERP, email and messaging, social media. So such all kinds of different data are generated, and then it will be accepted by big data technologies. They will collect, integrate, process, aggregate and visualize. So all those operations are carried out by this big data technologies. And finally, after that, analysis of the data have to be done. So after analyzing the data, 4 different kinds of results we will come across. Descriptive. So what is descriptive? Descriptive means what is happening. Diagnostic, why did it happen? Predictive, what is likely to happen in future? And prescriptive, what should I do about it? So that is the different results are the results of data analytics in IoT. So descriptive means what is happening. What is happening means if some problem occurs, what is happening, currently what is happening. For example, if there is a smoke detector in a company and it will detect the smoke. So what is happening? Smoke is detected. Then diagnostic results. Why did it happen? Why the smoke is detected? Because there is some fire accident happened in the company. So smoke is detected. Then what is likely to happen? There may be a disastrous thing if the fire spread, and it is a problem to different machineries. The machineries may not work, or it may be a disastrous life-threatening thing also. So that is a prediction which will be taken out of the diagnostic data. Then prescriptive. So what we should do? We should find out the fire and we should take that off. So we should take that off the fire from the place where it ignited. So that is the different types of data. Descriptive, what is happening, why it is happening, what is likely to happen, and how you can avoid it by happening. So that is the different types of results. So it is an important question with respect to examination. So this is that same thing what I told with example: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive and prescriptive. So prescriptive recommends the solutions for the upcoming problems. So how you can solve that problem, that is prescriptive. Both predictive and prescriptive are more resource intensive and increase complexity, isn't it? So the first two levels, like descriptive and diagnostic, what is happening, why it is happening. So that is quite straightforward. But predictive analysis, what may happen, and prescriptive, so what can be done to avoid it. So those are complex things. But the value they provide is of greater use, isn't it? The value which is provided by this predictive and prescriptive methods of analysis are of greater use, because we can avoid a disastrous problem occurring in the future. IoT data analytics challenges. Let us see the challenges. As IoT has grown and evolved, traditional data analytics solutions were not always adequate. So that is not suitable. For example, traditional data analytics employs a standard RDBMS and corresponding tools, but IoT is much more demanding because the data which is produced in a large amount cannot be processed by a traditional RDBMS. IoT data places two specific challenges on relational database. There are two specific challenges by IoT, that is scaling problem. Due to the large number of smart objects that continuously send data, relational databases can grow incredibly large very quickly, isn't it? Because the IoT networks are scalable. So any number of things can be added to the network. So the data generated by an IoT network keeps on increasing. So it is difficult to manage that data. This can result in performance issues that can be costly to resolve, often requiring more hardware and architectural changes, isn't it? So when more number of data is coming from IoT network and it is not possible to be handled by traditional RDBMS, so then performance issues will be there. So efficiency will decrease, and cost of, if efficiency decreases, the cost of rebooting it will be difficult, and also more hardware and architectural changes need to be done to solve this problem. Another problem is volatility of data. With relational databases, it is critical that schema designed correctly from the beginning, isn't it? So we have seen in RDBMS, we will design the schema, then we will start working with it. But here, how to design a schema, because randomly, instantaneously data keeps coming. We don't know in what format and how much data will be generated. It is difficult to design a schema, and in what format. So it is difficult. Due to the lack of flexibility, revisions to the schema must be kept at minimum. So changes made to the schema should be kept at minimum. So as and when it comes, it should be dynamically added up. Changing it later can slow or stop the database from operating, isn't it? So schema changes must be kept minimum, and if you try to change the schema often, so it will slow and or stop the database from operating. IoT data is, however, volatile. That means in the sense that data model is likely to change and evolve over time. A dynamic schema is required. So here fixed schema as in our RDBMS will not work. So there should be a dynamic schema requirement to handle the data of IoT which is processed daily or even hourly. So the model, the schema may change daily or sometimes hourly also. You may have to change the schema. So dynamic schema need to be maintained. A fixed schema as in RDBMS will not serve the purpose of the handling of IoT data. To deal with these challenges, dynamic model handling, a different type of database like NoSQL is used. So RDBMS works on SQL concept, but which is not suitable for our IoT network. Hence, NoSQL database is used. Structured query language is used in RDBMS. NoSQL is a database that does not use the SQL. It is not set up in traditional tabular form or a relational database. So data is not a structured one, right? As we studied in our previous slides, most of the business data, 80% of business data is unstructured. So it will not be in a formula tabular form or in an organized way. Do not enforce a strict schema. So fixed strict schema is not to be designed at the beginning, and support a complex evolving data model. So as and when the schema need to be changed, dynamic schema can be constructed. These databases are more scalable. So as and when you want to scale it, add new things, you can add it. Data streaming challenge. So this is another challenge. Real-time analysis of streaming data allows to detect patterns or anomalies that could indicate a problem or situation that needs an immediate response, isn't it? While streaming the data, if some problem occurs, you should immediately respond to it. To have a chance of affecting the outcome of this problem, you must be able to filter and analyze the data while it is occurring at the edge as possible. So at the edge itself, when the data is streaming means moving from one place to another place. maybe like sensors to a gateway. So in that way, in that place, the data should be filtered and analyzed as much as possible at the edge itself. So that is a challenge. Major cloud analytics providers such as Google, Microsoft and IBM have streaming analytics offerings. So we will see all these kinds of analytics and the respective tools in the later part of this module. Network analytics challenge. So this is another challenge. With a large number of smart objects in IoT networks, it is challenging to ensure these streaming data flows are effectively managed, monitored and secured. So it is difficult in the IoT networks to effectively manage the data, monitor the data and give security to the data. So for those purposes, we have network analytic tools such as flexible NetFlow and IPFix, which will provide the capability to detect irregular patterns or other problems in the flow of IoT data through a network. So network analytics. So data analytics we have seen, network analytics. So why network analytics is required? To solve such problems. To detect irregular patterns of data, any attacks have been done by some intruder. So such kind of things can be found out by network analytics. Is there a regular pattern of flow or there is some irregularity? So then we can find out. So this NetFlow, flexible NetFlow tool we will be studying in the next part of the module. So that is about data analytics. Now let us discuss about the machine learning. So you have already come across machine learning. So let us just brief the summary of machine learning. One of the core subjects in IoT is how to make sense of data that is generated, because a lot of data is generated and some business insight needs to be found from that data. So how to make some sense out of that data is a challenge. Specialized tools and algorithms are needed to find the data relationships so that we can use them for our business. So some specialized tools and algorithms are needed to find the relationship among the data. So this brings us the usage of machine learning. Machine learning, deep learning, neural networks and convolution networks are words in relation to big data and IoT. So whenever there is a big data generation, so how to handle them, how to make some meaningful, some sense out of the collected huge amount of data can be done using machine learning, deep learning, neural networks and convolutional networks. ML is indeed central to IoT. So it is much required for IoT. Data collected by smart objects need to be analyzed and intelligent actions to be taken based on this analysis. So huge amount of data out of IoT networks must be analyzed and some meaningful sense should be derived out of the data so that it can be used by business, used for business. Performing this kind of operation is manually impossible, right? So deriving some business insight from huge amount of data by looking at the patterns, studying them, analyzing them, it is not possible, it is impossible manually. So machines are needed to process information fast and react instantly when thresholds are met. So for that purpose machines are required and it is not possible to be done by manual method. So there are different types of learning in machine learning. So we have seen supervised and unsupervised learning, you have already studied. So let us just brief it out. Supervised learning. In this method of learning, machine is trained with input for there is a known correct answer. So there will be a known correct answer using which the machine will be trained. For example, you are training a system to recognize a human in mine tunnel. So like when mine need to be closed at the end of the day, you need to find out any human is left in the mine tunnel. So for that purpose, manually it is very difficult, but using images, video surveillance, we can find out any human is present in the mining tunnel, so that mine can be closed. A sensor equipped with a basic camera can capture shapes and return them to a computing system that is responsible for determining whether the shape of human it is or not. So now in the surveillance camera, video of the mining tunnel is captured and it is sent for analysis. Now the analysis tool algorithm have to find out whether a human is there in the tunnel or not. So that finding out should be initially trained to the algorithm. So using the supervised learning technique, hundreds or thousands of images are fed to the machine of the mining tunnel, and each image is labeled. We'll have some label. It is correct or it is not correct. It is yes, no. So such kind of labels are given, using which it will detect whether the human is present in a mining tunnel or not. This is called as a training set. So the data using which the machine is trained is the training set. Usually 80% of the data will be used for training and 20% of the data will be used for testing. Each new image is compared to a set of known good images and deviation is calculated to determine how different a new image is, isn't it? So like an image is given to the machine to train, and if it is finding out exactly or not, so that difference will be taken and it will be used for next training. This process is called as classification, whether it is a human. So whether in the tunnel there lies a human, or it is a pillar, or it may be some animal, isn't it? So it has to classify whether the object which is seen in the mining tunnel is a human or not. So that process is called as a classification, to classify whether the identified object is human or not. After training, the machine should be able to recognize the human shapes in the tunnel. If the machine does not reach the level of success expected, more training is required. If the machine is not capable of identifying during training, if it is not able to identify the human in the tunnel exactly, accurately, then more training is required for the algorithm. So this is supervised machine learning. So here you can have a data set where it is split into training data and test data. Training data and test data, 80% and 20%. Then train model will be designed and a test data score model will be designed, using which an evaluate model is designed, and then algorithm will be completed. Training data, test data, train model, score model, and using the result of which a evaluation model is designed. So another one is the regression. In other cases, the learning process is not about classifying the things with a correct value or not correct value, yes or no. For example, speed of a flow of oil in a pipe is function of size of the pipe, viscosity of the oil, pressure, and few other factors, right? So when oil is flowing in a pipe, it is the function of the size of the pipe, viscosity of the oil, pressure, and other factors. So when you train the machine with measured values, the machine can predict the speed of the flow for a new and unmeasured viscosity. So if you train for a particular oil with a particular viscosity, Then if you give a new type of oil which is not trained, then also it will be able to identify the viscosity, identify the flow. So this is called as the regression. Regression predicts numerical values, whereas classification predicts the categories, yes or no, correct or not correct. Unsupervised learning is not the best method for a machine to help with a human decision. So human decision is not prescribed. So it may be very difficult to detect potential defects in engines in a factory with hundreds of parts, isn't it? If a part of a machine is defected, how to identify? It is difficult to manually do it. It is almost impossible to train a machine to recognize issues that may not be visible. Test each engine and record multiple parameters such as sound, pressure, temperature of key parts, etc. Graph these elements in relation to one another. Input this data into a computer and use mathematical functions to find the groups. So you need to find the groups, similar machines. Now you have to train the model, right? So we have to find the similar type of machines. We need to group them and then we need to train the groups. Train the machine using the groups. There will be occasionally an engine in the group that displays unusual characteristics, slightly out of expected temperature or sound range. This is engine that you send for manual evaluation. The computing process associated with this determination is called unsupervised learning. This type of learning is unsupervised because this is not a good or bad answer, isn't it? So some machine is producing a different sound than the similar machines, then it need to be sent for evaluation. So now it is not a classification problem. So whether it is producing a good sound or bad sound, we are not classifying, right? We have to find out what is the problem for that different sound of machine. For example, you may need to group the engines by the sound they make at a given temperature. A k-means clustering algorithm is used. Grouping the engines this way can quickly reveal several types of engines that all belong to the same category. So now you are clustering. This process is called as clustering. You are categorizing the machines of similar types into one group. All engines of the same type produce sounds and temperatures in the same range as other members of the same group. So then you can take that machine to a group where the similar sound of machines are produced. So clustering and deviation detection example. So here you can see the different data produced are clustered. So like data red color are same type, blue color, yellow color and green color. They are clustered. They are made into groups. All red color data in a group, a cluster, blue in a cluster, yellow in a cluster and green in a cluster. So unsupervised learning, how it happens. The raw data is given to an algorithm and that algorithm will train the machine and then it will group the data into clusters of similar type. That is unsupervised machine learning, where we don't have a background data to test and train. So here the raw data is given to algorithm, then clustering happens where similar type of data is grouped into different clusters. As you can see here, this algorithm will make that data to be clustered here, different types of data. Neural networks. Supervised learning is efficient only with a large training set. So why neural networks are required? Large training sets lead to higher accuracy in the prediction but requires a lot of computing power, isn't it? It is also difficult to determine parameters to input. So what parameters we should give, that is difficult to be identified. This requirement is partly what made ML fade away somewhat in 1980s and 1990s. This problem made the ML fade away. Training the machines was often deemed too expensive and complicated. Since 2000, cheaper computing power along with access to very large datasets rejuvenated the possibilities of ML with neural networks. Immense progress has been made in the efficiency of algorithms used. Take the case of human shape recognition in mining operations, which we discussed previously. Distinguishing between a human and a car is easy. The computer can recognize that humans have distinct shapes such as legs or arms, and that vehicles do not have that features. Distinguishing a human from another mammal is little difficult. The same goes for telling the difference between pickup truck and a van because they share similar features. Training a machine to differentiate them requires more than basic shape recognition using machine learning. This is where neural network comes into picture. Because of those problems which were difficult to be handled by machine learning, neural networks can give the solution. Neural networks are ML methods that mimic the way the human brain works. It works in the same way as the human brain works. When you look at a human figure, multiple zones of your brain are activated to recognize colors, movements, facial expressions, etc. Your brain combines all those features, that is the color, movement, facial expression, everything will be combined and it will conclude that the shape is a human shape. Neural networks mimic the same logic as our brain does. The information goes through different algorithms which are called as units, each of which is charge of processing an aspect of information. Each unit is in charge of processing an aspect of information. The resulting value of one unit computation can be used directly or fed into another unit for further processing. So there will be different units. The result of one unit is fed as an input to the other unit based on which it will take some decision. In case of neural network, it is said to have several layers. It will be having several layers, means such units. We'll see how it is. For example, a neural network processing human image recognition may have two units. The first layer determines whether the image is a straight line and sharp angles. Vehicles have straight lines and sharp angles, and human figures will not have straight lines and sharp angles. That is the first layer of identification. Then the second layer, when the first layer is successfully executed, second layer sees that for different features, presence of face, arms, etc. Third layer might compare the image to images of various animals and conclude that the shape is human or not of human. The great efficiency of neural network is that each unit processes a simple test and therefore computation is quite faster. So here in this flow diagram you can see there is a training, then given input, first layer to determine the shape, where is a straight line and curves, then the higher layer and the top layer. These are the middle layers. Higher layer, neurons respond to more complex structures. Top layer, neurons respond to highly complex abstract concepts. Then finally the output. So output will be most accurate, like if we are detecting a animal, dog, which is given here. So 90% chances are there of getting the correct result of identification that it is a dog, but 10% chances are there, the error percent is 10%, it identifies it as a wolf. So here in this diagram you can see the input 2 is given, then in different layers it is identifying different small operations with functions, and finally in the last layer it identifies that the output is 2. The input given is 2 and it will give the output is 2. See how the layer by layer processing happens in neural network. In a sense, neural networks rely on an idea that information is divided into key components, and each component is assigned a weight. So based on the weight, the neural network works. The weight compared together decide the classification of this information. No straight lines plus face plus smile equal to human. So if these characteristics are there, then it is identified as human. There is no straight line, face is there and smile is there, then it is human. When the result of a layer is fed into another layer, the process is called deep learning. So when there are more hidden layers in the middle which perform small functions, so then it is called as a deep learning. Accuracy will be more in deep learning. One advantage of deep learning is that having more layers allows richer intermediate processing, which leads to more accuracy. Each layer, the data can be formatted to be better utilized by the next layer. This process increases the efficiency. Machine learning and getting intelligence from big data. Principles of machine learning are more applicable to IoT. Determining the right algorithm and right learning model for each use case is difficult. So which model we have to go for the machine learning? Determining the right algorithm and right learning model is difficult. It can be useful to organize ML operations into two broad subgroups, that is local learning and remote learning. Local learning, in this group data is collected and processed locally, that is in the edge, either in the sensor itself or in the gateway. So sensor is in the edge level and gateway is in the fog level. So either in the edge or in the fog the data will be processed, that is local processing. Remote learning means data is collected and sent to central computing unit, which is the cloud, and where it is processed. Regardless of the location where data is processed, common applications of ML for IoT revolve around four major domains: monitoring, behavior control, operations optimization, self-healing and optimizing. Monitoring, smart objects monitor the environment where they operate. So as the smart objects monitor the environment where they operate, they will monitor the conditions like the temperature of the air, the humidity and presence of carbon dioxide in a mine. So such contextual information it will monitor, and based on that it can be easy to detect the early failure conditions. Next, the behavioral control. Monitoring works in conjunction with behavior control. So in the previous slide we saw monitoring. It works in conjunction with behavioral control. So if something goes wrong, some threshold, beyond the threshold the data goes in a context, so temperature rises beyond the threshold, some event happens, then an alarm can be given to a human and some corrective action will be taken. For example, flow of fresh air in the tunnel if the oxygen level is less in tunnel, and turning the robot arm to avoid any accidents and reducing the pressure of an oil pipe. Such kind of behavioral control of a machine can be done by monitoring the conditions. The next one is the operations optimization. Analyzing data can also lead to changes that improve the overall process. Analyzing data can also lead to changes that improve overall process. For example, in a water purification plant, we can use the neural network, which uses several layers to estimate the best chemical and stirring mix for a target air temperature. So repeatedly it will in different layers use different chemicals and stirring mix methods, which will give the target air temperature. So then optimizations can be done using neural network. Then the next one is self-healing and self-optimizing. ML based monitoring triggers changes in machine behavior and operations optimization by combining new parameters and automatically deduce new optimizations. Then the systems become self-healing and self-optimizing. It also detects new k-means deviations that result in new potential defects. So by identifying it, it becomes self-healing. Self-healing literally is not possible, but diagnosis is automated. So when diagnosis is automated, so it refers to self-healing. Then predictive analytics. Machine learning and big data processing for IoT fit very well into digitization. When the data from multiple systems is combined and analyzed together, predictions can be made about the state of the system. So exactly predictions can be done when you combine the multiple systems, data from multiple systems together. Predictions become much accurate. For example, the sensors which are deployed in a locomotive, so you can collect different parameters such as weight on each wheel, multiple other parameters like pull between carriages, then the camera's state of the tracks ahead, audio sensors analyze sound of each wheel of the track, and multiple engine parameters all put together. Combiningly, prediction becomes easier and accurate. All this data can be returned to a data processing center in the cloud that can recreate a virtual twin of each locomotive. Virtual twin means a exact virtual copy of the locomotive where simulations can be done and predictions can be done. If any problem occurs, how it occurred, what can be done, so such kind of predictions will be easily done. Okay, so that's all for the day. The remaining part of the module we will discuss in the next class. Have a good day. Bye.